Bruchem Avoim B'Shem Hashem B'Shem Irgen Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Yakov as Mitzvah on Dine Shala Yushalman B'Yom Shabbos Kodesh, Snow and Rain on Shabbos. To have the great Kislev sponsoring our shir called Irgen Shir Torah 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rav Smith.
Now the summer's coming. I'd like to discuss today the sugya, the question when it does snow, or I'm sorry, the winter's coming. I'm sorry. I feel like the summer. That's why we say that. But the question is, when there's snow on the ground, is it muktzeh to shovel the snow? When you have concerns, people will trip. I'm talking about within an erev, of course. Is it muktzeh to sprinkle salt on the ice, to chop the ice? Someone asked about pouring hot water on the ice if he has no salt. And then someone asked me an interesting question that wasn't as simple as it seemed. When you're walking in the snow and sometimes there's an accumulation of snow on your hat, is that a problem? Is that a problem of haitzah? And these and other questions we're going to touch upon today, which really is the sugyas of muktzeh, of moilid, soisa, will soon see of the dechayel. And it's a very beautiful sugya because it's like a beautiful package, that puzzle that fits one piece into the other. We have to realize one thing. Snow is not a modern invention. They had snow in the times of Chazal. So our privilege of today is to figure out, is snow muktzeh? That's the starting point, because they had snow. Look in the Gemara and the Rishonim and apply it to the various newer type of shilas. But let's think objectively. Let's talk about snow that fell on Shabbos. Should that snow be considered muktzeh? So the question is, why should it be muktzeh? Snow is fully useful. You could play with it. If you want, theoretically, you could take a cup of fresh, I'm talking about clean snow, not the city dirty snow, but the clean snow, you could put in some raspberry syrup and you have slush. You pay it, the money for in the store, you can make it yourself. Now we'll soon see that the snow is not as clean as the purified water, but it's definitely drinkable. Snow is the same ingredients like water that we drink. Let me add a little more geschmack to that. Stones, eitzim vavonim are muktzeh. I want to use it on Shabbos to hold open the door. But it's muktzeh. If before Shabbos you miyachid it and you designate it to hold open the door, then it's not muktzeh. Because eitzim vavonim inherently are muktzeh. So let's put it this way. Eitzim vavonim are guilty until proven innocent. It's muktzeh until you make it ois muktzeh. But you look in halach, it's clear that food, including drinks, water, is just the opposite. Foods is innocent until proven guilty. Food that's edible, if it's not muktzeh. Even sometimes even raw food is edible, is not muktzeh. In fact, when you have chicken v'rasuda, you're allowed to serve the bones to the dogs, and it's not muktzeh because it's still food. In fact, food is mutter to move even shalei l'tzarah klal. My point is, there's a fundamental difference between food and eitzim vavonim. Food is mutter until it's totally useless. Marshal food that's terribly spoiled, that's muktzeh. Now, oy bazoi, why should I think snow that essentially is water, it should be muktzeh? It's frozen, so wait 15 seconds, that'll be no longer frozen. So Iboy say Mesvara, snow should not be muktzeh. You want to play snowballs, it's not muktzeh at least. But Iboy say Mekra, listen to this. The Har Tzvi and Chelik Aleph Amud Reish Peches, he writes about a Pella, he was a Yushalmi. In Rosh Chodesh Adar, there was a big snowfall in Yerushalayim, and people didn't know anything about snow, v'espendus, is it muktzeh? So they asked me, and I told them it's a Farish Gemara in Shabbos and Alpha Mabeis. But listen to the Yeinfeld. The Gemara says, "Ein meraskin lo yas hashelag lo yas habarad b'shvil sheyezuvu meimav." Now we'll soon see the details, but a person cannot pick up a hand of snow and crush it and turn it into water. Rashi says that's the issa of moilid. You're creating water. You're taking snow and making it into water, and we'll soon get to the details. Zok the Har Tzvi. But to pick up the snow is not a problem. Is a raya midina gemara that snow is not muktzeh. And I saw that Yosef Chaim Kanievsky, is snow muktzeh, and he said ayin Shabbos and Aleph Mad Beis, and the rest you figure out. And now we know what it means. No. But there's a different raya that has a tremendous impact on our sugya. And that is the sugya in Hilchos Erev, and if you're familiar, without getting into the details, it's not important at all for our shiach upon him, but you could have a natural mechitza that allows carrying by using natural mechitzas, a riverbank, etc. But if there's an obstruction, something that's blocking the natural mechitza, the erev becomes puzzle. Zokt both Taz and Magen Avram in Shin Samach Gimel. Let's say you have a snowfall, and the snow, a layer of snow or ice on the natural mechitza, that passes the erev, because it's ice mechitza. That's the sheet of Taz and Magen Avram. Zokt Shev Yakov, in a very important tshuva in Simon Yud Zayin, he was the Rav of Frankfurt am Main over 300 years ago, and he says, I don't agree to the Magen Avram. He says, because snow is essentially water. Snow is like mashkil l'chol davar. He brings one raya of Milchas Mikvos that will leave, but he brings a raya from our sugya. Because the Ran, on our Gemara, in Shabbos, Nun Alf Beis, Zok the Ran, that if you, let's say you take snow and put it in a cup, and it becomes water. Can you drink it? Yes. Mashkin Shezova, we know, juice comes out of Paris is muktzeh. That's because it's a new item. But snow is basically water, and the lashon is, even when it's frozen, toiras mashkoleim. So tainit the Shev Yakov. So why is it a problem? If you have an obstruction on the mechitza, it's a problem. But snow is basically water. And you look in the back of the Shulchan Aruch, there's one of the Perushim, the Even HaOiza, Simon Samach Gimel. He brings the Taz and has the same disagreement. Snow is basically like water. And the Kislev Ashlishi, Vayan Yois, the Puparov, and the Tshuva Simon Reish Aleph, he has a shayla there about snow regarding the erev, but he says, but that's pashit. Snow is not muktzeh even if it fell on Shabbos. Now what's beautiful, and we'll soon come back to it, the Even Oiza brings a raya that ice and snow are not a problem because of what we know, what always warms our heart. We think of Yid Namol, they would break the ice to be able to toivel in the Nahar. Obviously, it's not a problem. But I hope it's clear that Iboye say Mikra, Iboye say Mesvara, we have a Gemara, we have a Poiskim, we have a Svara, that snow is not muktzeh. The Buchacha in Simon Shin Yud Beis, he says, Shelag ain't a muktzeh klal, because you could feed it to the birds. Now I know today we don't feed snow to the birds, but I think the Svara, like I told you earlier, once something is an oichel or a mashka, it's not muktzeh until it becomes totally useless. The Mekar Chayim, as we'll soon see in Shin Chaf Yud Aleph, he has a problem with making snowballs, but he says to move the snow is okay. I saw the Shmir HaShabbos, and many other poskim, Marzal Yosim and Samaches, has a tshuva, and many others as well. Rabbi Yashav also said this, that snow is not muktzeh. Now again, even though we don't use snow, and again, probably little the problem with snow is that snow falls from the Shemayim, obviously, and there are pollutants in the air. And that's why it's not as clean as tap water, because tap water is purified. Even in a nahar, even in a lake, the pollutants sink to the bottom. Snow, like rain, is not as clean, but I discussed with those that know, it's still drinkable. So basically we're going to say, I think it's pashut that snow is not muktzeh. If the snow, like in our city, after a few hours after the rain, it's black and it's dirty and it's not drinkable and you can't use it for rechitza, no, that would be muktzeh. We're going to get to that. Good point. Now what's troubling is Rav Moshe is quoted in Tiltulei Shabbos, page 165, that he quotes Rav Moshe said that since the derech today is not to use snow, it's muktzeh. I guess he meant like eitz and vavonim, and therefore it's functionless. Now in the Igros Moshe, in Chelikei, in Chav Beis Lamed Zayin, that's where they have this, where he told the Tiltulei Shabbos, it's printed there. He also says that snow is muktzeh. Now this is a problem, because as we said, L'maisa, water is water. But also, Reb Shimon Aida, one of the first that wrote Hilchos Shabbos in page 120, Shamati pi agoyer Moshe Feinstein Shlita, Moshe was alive at the time, the Sheleg oi geshem sheyared b'Shabbos, loi havi noilid, and it's not muktzeh. So we're not clear what Reb Moshe really held, but one thing I will say, we have many Gdolei HaPoskim that say emphatically that snow is not muktzeh. The next question, we'll get to noilid soon, is how about rain? So rain should be a lot easier, because snow, you could say, well, snow is not yet liquid, you have to change it. But rain is rain. And again, iboyis ein makra, iboyis ein masvar. Iboyis ein masvar because rain is basically drinkable water. You could use it for a chitza. What's the problem with rain? Iboyis ein makra, you want a Gemara? I'll tell you a Mishnah, in fact. The Mishnah in Be'el Lamed Ches Lamed Hey Amid Beis talks about, actually it's a line, but it's important. Nois nikli tachas hadelef b'Shabbos. What the Mishnah is referring to is there's it's raining, and there's a drip of rainwater. So the halacha is you're allowed to put a keli under the rainwater. What's the chiddush? Pashit. So you look in the Shulchan Aruch in Shin Lamed Ches with the hezbollah of the bialacha. There is a chiddush. Because let's say the water that's dripping is dirty water that no one could use. So by putting a keli to catch muktzeh, that's called mavat mekli meichana. You're now going to take a keli that's functional and makes it functionless. Because if you put this keli under the muktzeh water, then you can't move the keli. So that's ein mavat mekli meichana, which Rashi says is an isaf soisa. But the first part of the Mishnah is saying that since rainwater is not muktzeh, you're allowed to put a keli to catch the rainwater. No. So it's as clear as day, midin ha-mishnah, that rainwater is not muktzeh. It's only when the rainwater is dirty and as useless, that's when it's muktzeh. So we have a mishnah. And I should mention the Tshuvas HaGoinim, you're going back before the Rishonim, and Siman Reish Men Beis, I'll quote the Lashon, Mata yoyred b'Shabbos v'yomtiv, mutal lishtais mehem, v'lirchotz behem, aval pishlei hoye ba'av mi ba'ara v'chein halacha. Even if it rained on Shabbos, of the Tshuvas HaGoinim, rain is not muktzeh. The Shiboli Alek, one of the Gdolei Rishonim in Siman Pei says exact same thing. Rain that fell on Shabbos or Yom Tov, you're allowed to drink it or wash with it because Lamaisa it's not muktzeh. The Beis Yosef in the end of Shin Yud quotes this, and the Mishnah Berurah says it as clear as day. Shin Lamed Ches Sivka and Lamed. The ein ala mota hayored shem muktzeh oinoilid. You could drink it, wash with it, and feed it to the animals. So we're comfortable to say rain is not muktzeh. Now again, I add, today we don't use rainwater, but again, once rain is a mashka and it is officially useful, it's mutter. I saw the Orcha Shabbos in Chelik Beis, it's page Sada Gimel, has a beautiful proof to this. Let's say you have a tree that's out of the tchum that has luscious peiros, and the peiros fell off the tree before Shabbos, and punkt, you happen to be for some reason out of the tchum. Is that apple muktzeh? Rather not. It's not. No one eats it because no one goes chutz to tchum. But an apple's an apple. So why is rain different? Food is food. Again, innocent until proven guilty. So that's why we're comfortable to say both snow and rain, even if it fell on Shabbos, is not muktzeh. I must mention, I'm sure you know this, that if you take groigerus at smukim, you put it on the roof to make it into dried fruit, so that's muktzeh because you were dacha b'yadayim. You did something. But rain and snow, you didn't do anything to it, and I'm comfortable it's not muktzeh. Okay. We're not yet finished. Now we have your question. Enechanami, it's not muktzeh machmas gufay, but why is the muktzeh machmas noilad? We know a beyashinol, the biyamtiv, which is a fully edible egg, is muktzeh because there was no achana, wasn't made from before Shabbos. So why don't we say rain and snow that fell before Shabbos is not muktzeh? But if it fell on Shabbos, why is it different than a beyashinol, the biyamtiv? And indeed, the Pri Megadim. Now this is an interesting place. You have to find it. It's in the back of the Shulchan Aruch. There's a Psicha L'Hilchos Yom Tov, Perek Gimel Chelik Sheni Ois Chavtes. He says that there are a few different types of noilids. It goes in levels. The worst noilid gama, is rain that fell on Shabbos, because Maya Be'iva Mivla Bali, that's the more erev memhema beis. So the worst form of muktzeh is a noilid gamor, like rain. Now this is a pliya. This is flies in the face, everything we said till now. According to Prima Godim, snow and rain is muktzeh. And in the Har Tzvi, in that tshuva, he says snow is not muktzeh, but you better take a look at the Prima Godim. That doesn't seem to say that. But the pliya is, when you learn the Gemara in Erevin, the Gemara had a havamina that Maya Be'iva Mivla Bali, which means that the erev Shabbos, there is no snow, there is no rain in the clouds. It's basically moisture. But on Shabbos, it's created, so therefore it's a noilid. But the maskana, the Gemara says Maya Be'iva Mein at Naidi, and that's why all the Paiskim are surprised. What is the Prima Godim saying the Havamina? And also we saw the Tshuvas HaGoinim, Shiboli HaLeket, way before the Prima Godim were Matir. And it's Mefurish Mamish, the Meiri and erev memheyim at Beis, says Beferish the Maskana that Maya Be'iva Mein at Naidi, there is water in the clouds erev Shabbos. It's not a noilid, it's not muktzeh. So Lamaisa, all the Paiskim after the Prima Godim say the same Yisoid, that he didn't mean halacha Lamaisa rain is muktzeh. He wanted to illustrate what's a real noilad. Now, where do you have a real noilad? Teretz loita havamina, that water in the cloud is not yet created till it falls. So that would be a good example. So he's using the havamina to illustrate the noilad gomer. But it's inspiring to me how the G'dolei HaPoskim, that don't just say, Prima Godim, okay, so Tzver. And the Prima Godim is Kayidua, small letters. He's always writes with great anova, always Efsha, Ulai, but he's a Prima Godim. And everybody has to fan for the Prima Godim. But at the end of the day, the Poskim say that Lamaisa, snow and rain, even that fell on Shabbos, is not muktzeh. If you want to have a treat, I'll give you a treat. I saw the Binyan Shloim, Rab Shlomo LeVilna, who was the Rav in Vilna, in Siman Yotes. He says something, and the Panim Yafos in Parshas B'Shalach, on Tezayin, hey, on the Pasuk Haybe HaMashisha V'chinas Hashaviu, they both mechav the same Yisoid. They both say that Mon fell on erev Shabbos. Why wouldn't it fall on Shabbos? So the pshat is because Mon that fell on Shabbos is muktzeh. Because the more in Yuma Dav Ayin Hey says that Yidden had to have a munah, but couldn't be confident that the moment to fall for them on Shabbos, if it had to. Because you have to be on a certain madrega. So you never had das that the moment to fall on Shabbos. If it did fall, it would be a noilad gomer. But v'loy dami l'ksham sheyardu b'Shabbos v'yomtiv zok the Binyan Shloima, because there it's not noilad, because it's Maya Be'iva Mein at Naidi, and people know that weather always changes. They had das in it. So he's saying Mon on that fell on Shabbos is muktzeh, unlike rain fell on Shabbos is not muktzeh. So you have a Binyan Shloima that makes this chilik. Okay. Now that we have the basic yisoid, let's apply this lemaisa. I was once in Muncie for Shabbos, and there was a shul within an erev, and I was going to mincha, and someone was in front of me, and I guess he was in an interesting mood. So instead of washing his hands for mincha, he grabbed a handful of snow and rubbed his hands with the snow, so he washed his hands for mincha. So I was thinking, this Yid made it to Beferish Gemara. Which Gemara? Shabbos now from a base. Ein meraskin lo yasashelik. You're not allowed to take snow and transform it into water. But Tosfos speaks out the example of this Gemara, mamash this case. So Tosfos, someone shouldn't take a handful of snow and rub his hands to wash his hands. It doesn't say about mincha and munsi, but just the same thing. Taking a handful of snow and rubbing it is the issa of a meraskin as a sheleg. That's an issa d'Rabbanan of being moilid. You're creating the water that you just grabbed and turned it into water. The snow that you turned into water. Now, what's interesting, Tais goes a step further. Don't even grab water that has some ice in it, because inevitably you're crushing that ice. And that's Shulchan Aruch Sif tests regarding Ein Meraskin and Siman Shinchav Sif test, and in Sif Yud Aleph, be careful with water that has some ice particles in it. So, if you want to do things different, you have to make sure it's ice count. But this was mamish a violation of a Ferish Gemara. Now, let's say someone during the summer is running to Mincha and he doesn't have water, but there's an accumulation of water on the table outside of the shul. Oh, that's fine. Because snow, rain is not muktzeh. There's no crushing. So to use rainwater is fine. I'll give you another mashal. Someone is learning outdoors after a rain during the summer, and he touches a makom b'chusa. So instead of going to his house to wash his hands, he uses the rainwater on the table. That's perfectly fine. If someone ate outdoors, whatever, and he has no mayim achronim, and he wants to use some rainwater, that's pashut, that's not muktzeh, and it's okay. Now, you want to know a case where water is muktzeh, a real case of noilid? So I'll tell you what I saw Rav Vozna, Chelik Yud Aleph, Simon Reish Daled, and Shlomo Zalman, and Mincha Shlomo has a whole tshuva about it, and that is the air conditioner drip. Now, let me explain. I don't know if it's not going to explain in detail, but basically, we call it an air conditioner drip. It's not a drip. It's not like a sink that's dripping. The condensation, that's right, by taking in the air and transforming it into cold air, so the basic science is when there's cold, there's less moisture. So the more cold it is, the less moisture there is. So when you make from humid air into cold air, there's got to be liquid that's created. So that air conditioner drip is really a noilad gomer that was created on Shabbos, and you shouldn't put a keli under it to catch that drip, because that is the case of mavata kli me'echanai. Since snow is not muktzeh, we could wonder, is it mutter to have a snowball fight? I'm not talking about adults, obviously, but children, higil lechinuch, is it mutter to make a snowman? So the Mekar Chayim and Shinchav Siv test, it's a very sharp lashon. Tipach ruchan, I'm not going to touch that. Shall oisei kadurei sheleg biyadan? They should get what they deserve. V'yesh bay mishlam shnei malachas, dash ubayna. So I guess it means dash, schiita. Maybe it means creating the water. But bayna, I know what it means. You're making a person, you're making a ball. Now, he says, ayin sif yud aleph, he says it again. You have to be moicha in children that make snowball, kadurei sheleg, but it's mutter to shovel the snow. We'll soon come back to the shoveling part of it. But what he assumes is that making snowballs, a snowman, is boina. Now, I guess he also felt that this would be similar to a Gemara in Shabbos. The Rambam passes like that, and the Magen Avraham quotes it in Hilchos Shabbos, that making cheese on Shabbos, megabein, is the issa of boina. But the problem is, there's a big makom machalik. Because when you make cheese, it's made, it's there, it stays. When you make a snowball and you leave it on the table, in a few seconds, it's gone. So, Takar B'Shleim Zalman and Shmir Shabbos Tezayin Kuf Yud Zayin, he wonders if it doesn't last. It only lasts in the cold weather. The Debatzina Rav and Chelik Vav Sim Melamed, he says, in a city that has an erev, I can't see reason to ask him making snowballs. But then at the end he adds an interesting ha'ara. Since we saw the Shulchan Aruch earlier, that you can't even wash with water that has snow in it or ice in it because you're crushing those small pieces of ice, so maybe making a snowball, you're crushing the snow by putting it together. So maybe he says making a snowball is a violation of our Gemara of crushing sheleg, because inevitably it has some type of transformation into a liquid. That's what he's assuming. Okay? If that's the case, then he's right. But we could hope that when you make snowballs and you don't push it too hard, it's not making any liquid. So if it's not making any liquid, we have the Mekar Chayim that says Tipan Ruchan. I'm afraid to play with that. But either it could be Boina, if it lasts, it could be Ein Meraskin, but if a child's playing with snowballs, you don't have to be Moicha, because L'chayra, if he just puts it together, it's not making it into water. And we'll soon discuss sending your children outside to play with the snow. Might have a different problem, but again, in l'chayra snowball, a snowman, it's definitely not in the spirit of Shabbos, but it's hard to say if there's no vadai water that's being made, that it should be a problem. the next question is shoveling the snow, and this I want to make a point because it's important. Snow, or maybe more so ice, is a hazardous condition on Shabbos. Some people breaking bones on Shabbos. I know a person that fell, hit his head, and never came back to himself, Rahman al-Islam. But Yidden, please remember, when it does snow, our first reaction, we have to be the first to shovel it. It's a chayv kaddish, weekday on Shabbos. There are too many stories that people got hurt on someone's neglected snow or ice. You know, you have good excuses, but that doesn't heal broken bones. Kasha, like we all know, Nebuch, it's a Metzias. So we have to be the first to shovel our snow. It's a kavod Hashem and kiddush Hashem. But anyhow, the problem is when it snows on Shabbos, what do you do? So the question is, let's say within an erev. Let's start with that. So what should be a problem with shoveling snow? It's not muktzeh. And basically, what's wrong with moving snow from one place to the other? Now, the emes is that there is an issa of meraskin, which means changing it. Moiled, and I want to explain something. The Gemara says you're not allowed to crush ice. Why? That's the issa of moiled. Moiled means biyodayim, you're taking snow, making it into water. I'll give you a contemporary mashal of moiled. Moiled is a verb, don't forget. They sell whipped cream in a pressurized can. Shake it up, and you press the nozzle, and out comes whipped cream. That is a bona fide moiled, because I need not tell you that there's no cream in the can. A little bit liquid with pressure, and that fluffs up the whipped cream. So using whipped cream is a contemporary example of moiled. Okay? Now, how about if I take snow or ice or congealed gravy and I put it next to a fire, next to a steam, next to a heating element, and it starts to melt? But I didn't crush it. I put it in a place that it starts to melt instantly. Is that the is of a meraskin? Well, it's melting, but I didn't do biyadayim. So this is a machlokes gedoylei rishonim. Rabbeinu Yerucham holds this mutter. The only issa is moiled verb biyadayim. But the Ran says, yesh machmir. What do you mean? But it's melting. How do we paskin? So in Shin Yud Ches Tez Zayin, the mechaba is mekel. You're allowed to put congealed gravy keneged or eish. Of course, there's no bishul, because you didn't do it. It's noilad. It happens. That's okay. The Ramah says v'yesh machmirim, very mild lashon. V'nogu lahachmir b'makom tzayrich yesh lismoich asvar rishayna. In other words, moilid, all agree is asa midrabanan. Noilid is a machlokes rishaynim. The machab is mekel. The Ramah is mekel makom tzayrich. Now, this is called noilid. A perfect example is, quote unquote, to make ice cubes on Shabbos. If you would make it biyadayim, all agree is awesome. But no one makes ice cubes, you put in the freezer. So putting in the freezer is not moiled. What is it? Noiled. So b'makam tzayrich, and the Levush says makam tzayrich means if you have guests, doesn't have to be someone got a bump on his head and a sakana. Just for guests, it's mutter to make ice cubes. Now, this is clear that the issa is, the real issa is making, level 2 is noilad next to an eish. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say I put ice cubes in a bowl on the table. Now naturally it starts to melt. Is that a problem of noilad? It should not be done unless it's makom tzayrich? No. It's different. I put it next to eish, that's what the Rishonim are talking about. It happens right away. I put it in room temperature, it's a gradual process. It's not even noilad. And indeed, Rav Ozan, Chelik Zayin, Simamem, the Chutshani, in Chelik Gimel, Perik Pei, Ois Aleph, he says, they both say this third level of room temperature, all agrees mutlach hatchila. That's where Reb Shlomo Zalman has a riesige Einfall in the Shmir Shabbos, Yud Yudalid. He says, if you want to make ice cubes, shaloi b'makom tzayrich, wait until the motor goes off of the freezer, refrigerator freezer, usually one, and put the water in the freezer when the motor is off. Because at that time, there's no energy enough to make from water to ice. It's like the third level of putting in room temperature. Now, it's a little of an aura because it happens later. It starts to happen with the cold air that's there. And when the motor kicks on, it might happen more. But if Shlomo Zalman said it, I wanted to mention it. But I will say one more thing. I once was sitting by Shabbos Suda, and someone had, it was a very funny scene, I still remember it, he had ice cubes, he was juggling ice cubes in his mouth. And he was trying to talk like that. I asked him, what's happening? Are you okay? He goes, well, I have ice cubes in my cup. I finished the water, and I can't put it back in the cup, because then it's going to melt. So I'd rather keep my mouth. So I didn't want to say anything, but I do remember, I thought, Lo Yamar It's Chosid. If he puts it in the cup, it's perfectly okay. He keeps it in his mouth, it could be moiled. Now, it's not really moiled because in the mouth there's no ma'aseh malacha. You're allowed to make toichin in the mouth, you're allowed to make burr in the mouth, but it's worse. It's worse than pravada, it's worse. It's better put it in the cup. So if an amoritz don't advertise, that's for sure. That's the Musa Haskell. But getting back, so we have three levels. Moiled is din ha-gemara. Noilid is also shaloi l'tzayrich, for Ashkenazim, for Sfaradim is okay. And the third level is room temperature, is muta l'chatchila. Now I'm going to ask you a simple question. Sprinkling salt on ice, is that level 1, 2, or 3? So avada, l'chayra, you're not doing a biyadayim. It starts to melt right away, but that's taka, not moiled, you didn't do biyadayim. That's noiled l'chayra. I saw the Shabbos Shabbat at Amba Taf Chaf. He has a beautiful way of putting it. He says you're allowed to put ice next to the madura b'makom tzayrich, right? Now, lu yitzur shach, you could bring the fire to the ice, same heter, right? No difference. So he says putting salt on ice is like bringing the madura to the fire, to the ice, but you're not doing more than that. It's basically putting it in a matzah that it will melt instantly. What's that called? Not moiled, noiled. Oy bazoi b'makom tzayrich ein lecha tzayrich gadol mizua. Yidden shouldn't break his bones. Oh, we're going to get to that. Well, good. So that's why I saw the Ber Moshe, Aleph Chav Ches, the Shmir HaShabbos, Chav Gimel, Chav Aleph, and a nice tshuva, the Machzor Eliyahu Barichas, and Aleph Samach Zayin are all matir to sprinkle salt on ice on Shabbos Makom Tzayrich, which typically it is. It's muktzeh. So loy mi boy, if you use table salt, regular edible salt, that's not muktzeh. The rock salt that we used to use on ice is basically salt that wasn't processed, which is edible. It's big. You still use it. They used to for kashering. Grub zalt is called in Yiddish. But basically, rock salt is also basically salt. But today they have the calcium chloride, the pellets, which is not edible. But the emphasis is, you think about it, if you're allowed to sprinkle salt on the ice, so why is it muktzeh? You have to miyachid it. You go to the store, you miyachid it. You bought it not to keep it in the basement. You bought it to use. So if there's no issa in sprinkling salt, what's the problem? But yes, a biur, medicine, the Paiskim say, in a house that there's no chaylim, is muktzeh. Because there's an issa taking medicine, unless you're a chaylim. But here, there's no issa sprinkling salt. It's always makom tzayrich. So I don't believe that even rock salt, that loimi boy rock salt, which the Machzor Eliyahu is makel. But even today, we have the inedible pellets, but if it's bought, that's the yichud, it should not be muktzeh. I declared about pouring hot water on, let's say you don't have salt, pouring hot water onto ice, of course, within the erev. So bishul sounds like a problem, but it's not. Because you're using, minimally, you're using an iri klisheni. You're not going to bring the urn outside or that kettle. So you pour it in a cup, and from the cup onto the ice. That's iri klisheni. That cannot cook unless kaliyah bishul. Water or ice is not a kaliyah bishul. So there's no problem of bishul. The question is it moilid or noilid? So here, the logic dictates that it could be a little worse than sprinkling salt. Because this is koicha. A person throwing the salt is actually what melts it. Throwing the water is what melts it. Sprinkling salt is a process. It has to start to melt it. Maybe throwing water is worse. We'll soon come back to that. I know that most people think it's similar to the sprinkling of the salt, but throwing water could be more of koiche, and I'll soon prove that. Now, throwing cold water onto the onto the ice is a much slower process, so that would definitely be noilad, not moilid, and would be mutter b'mokum tzoyrek.
The Ibud doesn't have an effect? Goes for Ibud right away.
What's the chilik?
Menekes is allowed to, if she has a page, allowed to the Ibud.
But here you're creating water. You see, the points can discuss that. If you throw, let's say, hot water onto the ice, and the water still is with the ice, so there's no noticeable, discernible creation. Yeah. Excellent. They asked that on Taisis. Very good. Good correct. But that doesn't change the halacha. If you put an ice cube in hot water and it melts right away, it's also mutter because you don't have a creation of water that's noticeable. But they ask it on Taisis. Very good. That's why Lamai said that's a good ha'ara. But hot water, the chayr seems more of a ma'isa than ice and than throwing the salt, and I'll prove that. But let's move on until we get to there. Shoveling the snow when there is no haitzah, within an erev, of course. If it's not muktzeh, what should be the problem? And indeed, the Mekar Chayim, who was so critical about snowballs and tipach ruchan, he says, you got to stop the children from throwing snowballs, but lifnois hasheleg min haderech umin hachaloin, aval b'sheyarad b'shabes mutter. So he is makel shoveling snow. I don't know if he used a shovel, but lifnois hasheleg, whatever he did it with, was mutter. Now, Machzal Yo and Simon Samaches is also makel to shovel snow within an erev. It might melt, and then it's going to be a miraskin sheleg, but it's not accumulation. Again, typically when the weather is cold and you shovel, it doesn't melt. And the Mishnah Berurah says regarding miraskin, he says but to break a piece of ice is mutter, because who said breaking ice makes it liquid? And even if a little bit does happen, it's ein mechaven, not a psikresha, hoylech leibud, Mishnah Berurah says. So basically, shoveling snow within an erev should be okay. Now I must mention, if you live in a suburban area, that there's not paved roads, but there's dirt roads, earthen roads, there's a problem, mashvagumais, that's pashit. But lemaisa, shoveling the snow in a city that it's roive air or kol air merutzev should not be a problem. The problem is the uvda dechoyel or the zilzal Shabbos involved in seeing a yid all of a sudden shoveling the snow. And we once just devoted a whole share for that, but basically the tircha yisera with the uvda dechoyel makes it a good candidate for zilzal Shabbos. In fact, the B'jana Rav and Das Torah Simon Shincha of Sif Yud, who is matir to crack the ice so people could walk, he says nira lahakol, but al uvda dechoyel have a guy break the ice. Now there's no doubt about it, breaking the ice is less of an action, it takes less time than shoveling. So if he considers breaking the ice over the chayil and get a goy, the same applies to shoveling the snow. The Machzal Yo feels that it's better to sprinkle salt than shovel the snow. Because sprinkling salt is 1, 2, 3, it's no big exertion, and you're finished. Shoveling the snow is a bigger deal, like they say. So he feels that if there's an alternative, throwing salt is a better alternative than shoveling the snow. But basically, in all cases, like the B'jana Rav says, if a guy could be asked to do that job, that's much better. And the guy could even, if the guy wants to use a snowmobile, he could do it by hand. That's his option. Again, the snowmobile smells like uvda d'chayil, but basically the best option is have a guy do it. If there's no guy available, using salt is better. If there's no other available, nothing else available, and you're choish that people will fall, then by all means, avada, you should shovel the snow and avoid a potential sakana. But top priority is public safety. Now I wondered, let's say it's out of the erev. Let's say a person is a bal chesed, he wakes up early in the morning, comes to shul, he knows there are older people coming, and it's hazardous. Is anything wrong on Shabbos with your feet, even though you're out of the erev, don't forget, to move the snow a few inches away, to make a path a few inch path. Don't forget, we pass in Shin Mem Tes Aleph, you're allowed to move things in Shus Rabim less than Dalar Amis. Now Dalar Amis, the Chumrah is 6 feet. 6 feet is a lot of space, right? If you make a path 1 foot, that's zicha very far from Dalar Amis. You're allowed to move something less than $1 amas. So snow is not muktzeh. The problem is haitzah, but less than $1 amas. So I was surprised. I didn't find anybody who speaks about this. The chayrit should be mutter. Maybe because it's mutter. Maybe it's just logistics. How do you move snow? Let's say there's a big snowfall without a shovel. They carry the shovel out. You're not allowed to. But if it's shaykh and a person does it, maybe he's afraid that people see him, that they won't want to marry his daughter because he's a samad nemensh, even though he's a bal chesed. So you do early in the morning. But l'chayr in svara, if someone knows his elderly parents coming to visit him, he's afraid they're gonna trip. So if he moves in front of his house less than $1 amas, I don't see a problem l'chayr. Unless I'm wrong, please correct me. Now, if it's a sheet of ice and there's no salt available, the next question is, within an erev, can you take an ice chopper and literally chop the ice? I'm talking about in Rosh Hashanah, where there's no problem of carrying, but maybe this is a meraskin, you're breaking ice. This is worse than breaking snow, you're breaking ice. But the emes is, that look again, and the chayr shouldn't be a problem. There's no issa in breaking ice per se. Breaking ice, like crushing snow, means you're making it into water. You're breaking ice until you make it into water. That's moilid, that's boirer mayim ha'el, like Rashi says. But if you break the ice, typically when you break the ice into pieces, you move the pieces to the side, and then you have a walkable path. And if it's a cold enough weather that the ice is maintained, it's not going to melt it by crushing the ice. So l'chayra, this is mutter, and there's no problem with emeraskim. Maybe if later, because it's smaller pieces, it's going to start to melt, that's the third level of adam mutter. So what comes to mind, and again, that warms our heart, what we know about Yidden, that ma'aseh nefesh, to break the ice, whether it's in a be'er or in a lake, to go to the mikveh. No? So they did it. And the emes is that the olden days, the well froze, and what do about drinking water? So here we see again the nitzchis of Torah, how everything is there, you have to just find it. The Torah in our Siman, Reish Shin Chaf, quotes the Rav Yah and Siman Reish Tes, Ravi Ezri Kosev, Shemuta l'shaba kerech k'dei lita l'mayim shetachtov. You're allowed to break the ice in the be'er, in the well, to get to water. Don't forget Shabbos, they had no water. So they broke the ice. The Mordechai, in the end of the 4th parak in Shabbos, the Sheva Leket Pehei, both say the same klal. It's not meraskin sheleg, because it's ice, and you're not making it into water. Now, they don't speak beferish about a lake, but they're talking about either water that's frozen, or, as we saw earlier, the be'er. Now, this is a chayra pashit. The Zokte Beis Yosef, that this dafka, when is it asa? L'meraska chatichas ketanos. But to break the pieces of ice is no problem. And if it happens a little bit, so he says you're not intending to that, and it's mu'atim, and in a mischavin, hoylech le'ibud, no problem with breaking ice. Zok the Beis Yosef, and that's the minik to be mekel, lahatir. I know some are machmir, but ignore them. So that would l'chayra, I stress l'chayra would explain why Yidden broke the ice to get to mikveh. Now, you'll ask, but the be'er, maybe you're making a functional Pesach. Because if the be'er is frozen, you can't get water to drink. Now you broke the cover, now you can get to the water. So the Mordechai that I mentioned in the end of the 4th parak in Shabbos, Shin Lamed Aleph, bavarns this. And he says that just like you're allowed to break a chavius to get to the groigeris, because it's not considered soisikated, which is mutter v'oichel nefesh, especially by a mustaki, so too you're allowed to break the bear to get to the water. Fine. And the Shulchan Aruch says this, Shin Chaf Yud, mut l'shaba kerech delita mayim shetachtov. Zok the Taz, because you're not creating the water, what's the big deal? The Magen Avram adds a few words that Kedarki has a tremendous impact. After he says you're allowed to break the ice to get to the water, and like you're allowed to break the chavius to get to the groigris, venerally the benahar or bear asa, but in a lake or a bear is asa. He's clearly l'chayra arguing on the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Zok the Pri Megadim twice in Mishpat Tzav and Eshel Avram, but Machzah Shekel spells it out. Magen Avram has a different problem. To break a keli to get to the food is okay. But since the be'er and certain nahar is mechubal karka, it has a din of karka. And even if you say ein binyan ustira bekalim, but yes binyan ustira bekarka. So breaking the ice in the nahar or the be'er, which is karka, is an issa of saisa l'chaladeyus. And there's no doubt about it, according to the Magen Avram, to break the ice to get to the mikveh would be a problem, because you're breaking mechubal karka. However, this is for us hard to accept for two reasons. First of all, if you have you're breaking something of a keli mechubal karka, I understand. What's he breaking? What's the worst he's breaking? Ice. Ice is water l'chol dava. Zok the levush and see if you'd gimel. What do you mean? What are you breaking? You're breaking water. And the Eli Rabbah says it also. Ice is water l'chol dava. And to us today, we have that Shev Yakov that says that ice does not obstruct the erev, and he brings a rye from the Heilig Yidin that broke the ice to get to the mikveh. The Tosfos Shabbos, Chav Daled, quotes this Shev Yakov. He says you're allowed to break the ice to go to the mikveh. Yidin did it because you're not breaking anything, you're breaking water. In other words, it's back to original Yesod that when something is ice, it's really water, and there's no shvir by water. So if you break something that's mechubal karka, that's a problem. So although the Rav and Sif Yud Ches, the Chasam Sofer, I must mention Chasam Sofer and Archayim Peites were choishes for the Magen Avram, so breaking ice to go to mikveh would be problematic. But the Marsham and Chele Gimel, at the end of Sadik Zayin, and Mishnah Berurah says, Harbe Achroinim Cholkin Olav on the Magen Avram, that he says the Het is Shemayim Aleim, and there's no binyan and sphira on Mayim. Plus, as I saw the Tosfos Shabbos, Even HaOiza, Shev Yakov all say, Yidin did it by the mikveh, obviously it must be mutter. The Ben Ish Chai and the Kavachayim quotes him in Shin Chav Samachei, he makes sort of a pshara, but Mokai mitzvah, you could be makel to like a Magen Avram. So to go to the mikveh, or if you need water for Chitzas Yadayim, or for Einik Shabbos, you can make it. Otherwise, you should be chayish for the Magen Avram. Now, this is all regarding a be'er or nahar. Now, let's get to our shayla. Snow on the pavement. So, the chayra, it would be the same problem. Like the Magen Avram, you have a problem because it's part of the ground. Like the makilim, there's no problem because there's only water. My Shver Zechan Levarcha told when he was learning Besmed Yishelim, so obviously it was a lot of toyer, a lot of varmkeit, but there wasn't any physical varmkeit. He woke up in the morning and his negel vasa during the winter was always frozen. So he had to break the negel vasa ice to get to the water. That's probably mutter even like the Magen Avram. Because in the worst scenario, it's in a keli and there's no sois in a keli. The next question is walking. Someone asked me the shaila, which I was very makatayv because it leads us to a beautiful part of this sugya. There was I think it was in the mountains, whatever it was, but there was a path, a narrow path, but next to it was beautiful, clean snow, like in the mountains before you have all the traffic. And he likes walking the snow. He had boots. Like, why not? Does he have to dafka walk on the shoveled path? Can he walk in the snow lechatchila? The same shaila, sending children outside to play with the snow. So until today, you say, what's the problem? It's not muktzeh, even if it is dirty snow, but you're not touching it till the begufay. So listen to an interesting ha'ara. Let's say you have a thin layer of snow, and you have a yid, let's say a gross yid, okay, physically. And when he steps on the snow, it crushes it. Is that a problem? Biyadayim is asa. Biraglayim? So listen. The Torah in Siman Shin Chaf quotes Maram Rutenberg that he was matal lahatal meiraglayim b'shelik padim. We'll use a lashon nekiya. He's allowed to hashtana on snow is mutter. Zakter why? He's melting the snow. Shedoim l'drishas haraglayim shedoiris oiseh b'ragavein achoishes. In other words, the Maram Rutenberg was convinced walking on snow was definitely mutter. So if dris is mutter, hu adin hashtana, as I state in Maram Rutenberg. So the given is that dris is mutter, so what then ashtana? But Zakti Rosh, Dr. Tur quoting his father, the Rosh, my father was nizer by ashtana, and you can't compare it to a dris is raglayim, Because by Ashtana is a Vadai Nimuach, a Psikreisha Zok the Levush. But walking on snow is a Safek Psikreisha Zok the Levush. So we see that all agree walking on snow are called Drisa is Mutter. Hashtana is a Machlaikis Kedai Le'Rishayim. Now, remember, the Rosh's Lashon is Nizar. It didn't say it's awesome, but Nizar. Now, here's one point we have to iron out. Mam Rutenberg was Mekel, Hashtana, like walking. How do you compare the two? Walking is a suffix, Hashtana is a Vadai. Zok the Levush, that Lamaisa, even walking, even Drisa, which is Psikreish, is Mutter. Why? Because you didn't do Biyadayim. It's even though it's Vadi Nimuach, but it's only Koicha, it's Koicha, it's body, but not him. So he's holding that even walking, which is a Psikreish, is Mutter. Therefore, he properly compares it to Hashtana. The Rosh that was Mach with Hashtana, why is he Mekel with Drisa? Because it's not a Psikreisha. Now, how do we paskin? So it's interesting. The Beis Yosef doesn't discuss this. In Shulchan Aruch, he first puts the halacha of sheleg. I think it makes it easier to understand. Doirish sheleg biragla ve'ena chayz sif yud gimel. You're allowed to walk on the snow. Sif yud dalid, Mar Mutenberg matir, and the Rosh was nizar. Now, what's the psak regarding Hashtana? He doesn't speak about it. He just quotes two shittas. But one thing I will tell you, the Magen Avraham adds, why is Hashtana worse? Because it's a psikreisha. So now we're starting to see that walking on snow is mutter for two reasons. Safik, and even Vadai, it's not a Ma'aseh B'yadayim. But we're not yet finished. And here we come to the last piece of this puzzle. The Taz on this Shulchan Aruch is very unhappy with this heta, and he says, I have a better heta. And his lashon is, since, I'm just quoting in English, since it's efsha to avoid stepping on snow, because b'mois achayr, if the kol haaretz Malaya kfar uglid, don't forget, the Taz lived in Europe, that the winter was, most of the winter was snow. So if it's something efsha, Chazal never asked. The Aruch HaShulchan and Siv Chavav also lived in Europe, in the colder countries. He says, you can't go to shul on Shabbos. So they both say walking on snow, even if it's awesome, is only awesome midabanan, and it can't be awesome because you can't avoid going on snow. Zok the Taz, the next Sif Cotton, I believe that's why it's Mutter Hashtana. Maybe Taket's Avadeh Psikreisha. But you have Shalizar. Don't forget, they had to walk far distances. They didn't have restrooms in outdoors. So the Taz is really using this Efsha to be matir the Drisa and matir Hashtana. Now, Lamaisa, Halacha Lamaisa, the Paiskim, Mr. Bura says that Hashtana, if you could avoid it, better to avoid it, but Lamaisa, it's Mutter. Understandably so, it's Mutter, we have no other choice. Baruch Hashem, we don't have the Hashtana issue. The question is, our question, can a person that there's a clear path, he wants to walk on the snow, he feels more calm, he enjoys it. So the Chayra, if it's not a psikreisha, I see no reason to asa. If it is a psikreisha, then we have a problem. Because then we have what the Pais say, even regarding Hashtana Yesh Lizar. So to walk on snow, if it's a high snow and won't be transformed at all, Safek psikreisha, I think is fine. If it's a small amount of snow, and it's a psikreisha that you're going to transform it, that would be a problem. Sending children outdoors to play with the snow, they're going to jump on it and everything, that might be more covered with psikreisha. So you have to know if there's a psikreisha, I can't say it's awesome, but a psikreisha that would be more of a toiv lahachmir. The Rav puts the two together. He says that if you have wet shoes and by drisa it's going to crush the ice, and hashtana is mutter but toiv lahachmir makom she'efsha. So that, I think, is the guidance for our shayla. The question of the next question is interesting ha'ara. Let's say someone has a path, but it's not near, let's say an outdoor area. It's not near where he's going. A block down, there's a clear path. But if he walks right now straight, he has to walk on the snow. So this is an interesting question that's much more tricky than it seems. If I walk straight, I'll walk on the snow. but I don't have to walk that much. If I go an extra block to go on the shoveled path, I'm walking an extra block. Which is better? So you're thinking, what's the big deal, right? This is a Pharisee Gemara, but you say in Shabbos Kufid Gimel, it's a Mechaba Shen Aleph Gimel. You're not supposed to jump on Shabbos, like Yucha b'Shabbos, Yucha b'Choyel, but you're not supposed to go extra. Ma'arba b'Hiluch. So the Mechaba, based on the Gemara, is let's say you have a puddle, either you could jump over it or walk around. So if you might miss and end up in the puddle, don't jump. Let's say you're either going to jump over it. What's better? So the Mechaba says, Avad it's better to jump than walk extra. Why? Because I guess walking extra is Terech Yisera. Jumping is Iluchach b'Shabbos, but it's not as serious as Terech Yisera. So here the Mechaba already says that it's better to jump. Now, of course, all the pais can say, you're allowed to go for a walk on Shabbos, so you enjoy it. But if you're walking what you don't want to walk, that should be avoided. So here, our shaylach is the same thing. If it's really mutter to walk on snow, especially not a psik reisha, you want to be from and go to the shoveled path, that's a misplaced chumrah. That's extra terech shleil tzorich. Is just a few feet, a few hundred feet, but the times of Shabbos. I remember once I was with Bank of Kamenetsky, and I showed him a shortcut to get to his bungalow. So I remember he clapped and said, a derech ketzara for Shabbos. And at the time I didn't know what he was talking about, but that's what he meant. Next question, someone asked about walking with snow on his hat or on his coat. So this is really a hilchos haitzah shaila, but it's very much our sugya. Because the Mechaba has a problem. In Shin Chavav Siv Zayin, the Mechaba has a problem. That when you walk and you're caught in the rain, so your clothing is full of rain. How are you allowed to continue walking? You're carrying the water. What do you mean, carrying water? That's not a problem. But the Gemara says, and the Mechaba quotes this, that if someone toivels in a lake, before he walks Dal Ramis, he should shake off all excess water because he's carrying the water. So what's the chilik, carrying water on the body or on clothing? So there's a few terutzim, but the Taz says a beautiful teretz. And he says that in the lake you could be careful, but when you're going in the rain, you have no other choice. You can't be nizar. So Chazal never asked walking with rain on your begadim. As I state in Taz, Ayin Sham. Now the question is, how about when you're walking with snow? L'chari ef shelizar. We think about it, it's really ef shelizar. I would like to ask you, how are you going to do it? You're walking with a hat and coat, and it's snowing heavily. When do you stop to shake off the snow? Every kazayis, kabeya of snow? There's always snow. You're going to stop every second, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to miss davening. So really, the nerve, for sure it's no good. But besides that, it's just not practical. So once you can't stop, so back to the Taz. I'll say maybe be from and shake it off. So another halach I want to point out, the snow and rain, people when it come into the house, and they just got drenched, the first thing you do during the week, obviously, you shake out the coat, shake off the hat. That's fine during the week. Shabbos, says the Mechaben Shin Bey Sif Aleph, that could be two Isurei Torah. The Issa of Schiita, Biadayim, because you're shaking it, and also Malaben, because the water comes out as the dirty water that takes out the dirt from the clothing. So that's an Issa Daraisa. So shaking off something is a no-no on Shabbos or Yom Tov. But I must mention, the Bialach says a chiddush that even though snow would be similar to rain in this regard, but if you're careful to shake it off when the snow didn't yet melt at all, it's not absorbed in the actual fiber of the hat. It's like shaking off a feather off the hat. Okay, that's true, but you have to know the Metzias. Do you have Ruach HaKodesh know how much of the snow already melted? So it's not healthy to shake off a hat or coat even from snow, unless you do it right away before it melted. If you're wearing a rain hat cover, then you can shake that off. That the Pais say there's no Issa of Schiita, Malabein. In fact, there's another halach to mention. When you come in with your wet rain coat or hat, don't hang it in a place that people typically hang things after they washed it. That's Shulchan Aruch Shin Aleph Mem Hey, because that's a problem of Marasayin. But as the Shmir Shabbos points out, a plastic rain hat cover or a me'il, there's no problem of Marasayin. And the last question, I'll give you something to think about. Someone asked me, he was walking with boots, And notice when every step he takes, the imprint makes lettering, because the boot has lettering, and he's writing every step he takes. So I told him, in Chalamoyed, that would be a problem of Kislev. That's considered a Maisa Uman. You're stamping with a stamp. But here, we're going to say it's not Miskayim. At most, it's Sikreishad Lo Nichle. But I want to mention that the Seif Mechayin L'Shiftecha points out something beautiful, that most letters of the ABC, when they're imprinted, it's backwards, except for TOAMUVH. Most of them are backwards. So with the backward letters, Akapanim, there wouldn't be a problem. I could talk to you. Yankel, see what shidduch. Go ahead. So I got it. Tell him I mentioned it.
Shame Egenshirt, like you big as a character of Smith for today's share. Genan je ben een kastje, maar als ik er spogelen zak is, het is zelf hier hebben om te mutsen zijn hem al een neuk half is de man stuurt je jaar wil ter jade. Okay, Rabbi said quickly, before the snow melts.
Yeah,
you have
okay.
to seek him on ice and snow and Shabbos.
Just let's learn briefly. We had a Baruch Shem Malak that we covered today. According to most Paiskim, we could say snow is not muktzeh even if it fell on Shabbos, unless it's so unclean that it's unusable. Snow is not muktzeh. The fact that water is a mashka, and it's so he said it's not muktzeh until it's absolutely useless. Rain is also not muktzeh even if it fell on erev Shabbos for the same reason. You're allowed to use snow to wash your hands is an issur d'Rabbanan of moilid. To use rainwater in any way is fine. An air conditioned drip, we said, is a contemporary mashal of noilid. Snowballs, if you're merasik the snow, is an issur d'Rabbanan. Typically, snowball or snowman, the chayra wouldn't be buying it because it's not miskayim, but the Mekar Chaim's tipach ruchan scares us, so children should not make snowballs or the snowmen. Mikidadin, to shovel the snow in the erev, which is not crushing the snow into ice, should be fine. It's not moilid, it's basically at most noilid. Sprinkling salt is a level 2 noilid, and it's mutter to go out like that, it's mutter to do that. Salt, even the chemical, the pellets, is not muktzeh because it's usable. Hot water, l'chayra, we said is mutter, there's no bishul pouring hot water onto ice. But the question is it moiled or not, so I forgot to mention, that would be like ashtana. And that's the machlokes if it's considered biyadayim or it's not biyadayim, machlokes rishayin. That's what I should have mentioned. Shovel, the problem of the chayil applies to any type of shoveling or sprinkling salt, best idiakum. But if the choice is idiakum is best, sprinkling salt is the second best, and if there's no other choice, shoveling is okay. Chopping ice into pieces is not a problem of moilid, there's no water that's being created. Breaking ice of a well or a lake of any karka, the Magen Avraham was machmir, harbi achreinim hamekel, and that was the minig for breaking the ice to get to the mikveh. Walking on snow, if there's another path and you're afraid you might mamish be merasik the snow, that's not a problem. But typically, if there's no risuk, it's mutter, especially if you know they won't make the snow into liquid. Hashtan is a machlekes rishayim, and in those days they were makel. Jumping over a puddle or anything else, or ma'ar b'hilach, jumping is better. It's mutter to shake out a raincoat, the plastic or anything plastic, but don't shake out the actual clothing or hats or streimach. I should mention the the issa of going with rain on a body applies to snow, even though you could technically shake it off, but it's just not practical. And the question of boots have lettering is no problem. I should have mentioned that the halachos Yakov and Archaim Kov Beis Yibi Oime Hey Chav Ches discussed that barichas. Yes, how's the rope? I'm supposed to ask you about a certain shape. I forgot. Can I have your phone?